Hello, well met. Welcome to the Villains Wanted post-game debrief or round table or post-mortem, as Nikolaus would have it. I am joined here by Yang Yang, who played Tusher, the automated rogue slash ranger slash fairy keeper, and by Jake Hipsch, who was our DM. And I think Roz is going to show up a little bit later. So if you have questions for her, keep them close. Before we get into it, we're going to talk about our sponsors. I want to talk about Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms, an action fantasy RPG combination sort of game that is on all manner of electronic devices, your computer, your phone, your consoles, whatever. It collects all your favorite D&D and Forgotten Realms characters, including the Brimstone Angels characters, including the Legend of Drizzt characters. There's always some cool Forgotten Realmsy sort of festival going on. There's probably something great going on right now. You could click on the code and get yourself an Electrum chest. If you get something cool, let us know what it was. And yeah, take it away, Yang Yang.
Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm Yang Yang Wang. Before I turn it over to Jake, I'm just going to quickly talk about our two dice partners. The first one is Phoenix Dice. They make dice from recycled materials. Their dice are super awesome and beautiful. And if you want to do something good for the environment at your table, pick up a set from phoenixdice.com. The other one is Norse Foundry. They make super awesome premium dice out of materials such as metal, bone, wood, all the good, interesting stuff. If you want to set a super premium dice that's unique and you want to wow somebody at your table, go check out norsefoundry.com. So go ahead, Jake. Who are you? Who you be? What
Hello. You do? My name is Jake Hipsch. I was the GM for this game. I was joined by both of you as we played Villains Wanted, and what a fun experience that was. Beyond that, I do run games on Twitch. I'm working on publishing a couple of D&D adventures, including a few that would be really fun to run here or elsewhere. So come and check me out whenever I arrive and appear on a show. And it's been such an honor to play with all of you. I played with you a couple of times. It was just a ton of fun doing Villains Wanted.
Totally.
Heck
what up,
yeah.
Roz?
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, I'll pass it to you for a second.
Well. She's going to show up on the screen at any moment now.
I mean,
that the ritual is going to be finished.
That was a great timing, just in time to do your ritual. Or, I mean, your intro.
Oh, yeah. Both things.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Roz, or Ruzilla, on Twitch and socials, and I'm over here from QuestKeep, and it is such a delight. I'm so glad to have joined this game. Thank you so much, Dungeon Scrollers and Jake. So awesome.
As I understand it, you were literally right here, right from QuestKeep. Like, you drove right from the studio here.
Yeah, it's correct. Yes.
We are happy to have you. It was great to play with you and great to chat with you whenever we can.
Yay. Agreed.
I gotta say, one of the things I'm excited about in chat, I am watching the chat tonight. One of the things I'm excited about is to answer a bunch of questions, for me to ask you all questions, for us to learn information, particularly what is going on between Nikolaus and Apathy, right? Like, that is really at the heart of what I need to know. And so, chat, if you throw stuff in, we have some questions, right, Yang Yang?
Yep.
But if there are other ones, I'm happy. Like, I'd love to dig into stuff too.
Yeah, so we also gathered a few questions from our Discord. So I'm just going to go through the list of the questions that we have, some of the viewer questions that we gathered ahead of time, and then if there's any questions in Twitch chat, we'll get to those too. So just to kick it off, Jake, like, what gave you the original idea for this adventure?
I have a lot of ideas all the time. I don't know if anyone out here has that happen all the time, right? And I think one of the conceits behind Villains Wanted, right, was just a curiosity around, I mean, what happens when heroes are just maniacs all the time, right? They inevitably beat everything. And then what happens, right? Do you come into an era of peace? And I don't know about others in chat or here, I've discovered myself being more and more interested in narratives that are kind of playing with like bureaucracy, the trouble of corporations, exploring sort of like real world challenges that we face in our lives or that we see in the world, and opportunities, and then bringing those into the game. So like thinking through like, is there a secret organization that's running this? So I would say that that was sort of the inspiration that's been kind of noodling around for a while. And then I think I saw a WWE thing, like a trailer, and I was like, and how great would it be if it was kind of WWE-esque, like nicknames for you as villains and just the fun of that. I'll note that like I learned a lot playing it. You know, this was an idea that's been kind of like it's now even further fleshing itself out, building itself out, and you kind of have an initial idea of what's going to happen, and then you're like, oh, okay, I guess this is
Yeah.
slightly different. Yeah.
Well, the follow-up question is actually, how did it go versus how you anticipated?
You know, I want to throw it to you all first, right? Like, what did you anticipate? We had pre-meetings kind of talking about how we were going to conceive of this. And so if you want to briefly each say, like, what did you anticipate and how did it go? And then I want to build off of that.
It was basically exactly what I wanted to have happen. Like I was so happy with it. Because like back in the day, I used to play this little game that was really awesome on the computer until they wrecked it with follow-ups called Dungeon Keeper. Anybody remember this? Yes, where you were basically running as the BBEG and you were putting in monsters to fight, adventurers who would come in. And this whole concept has kicked off a bunch of board games and stuff. And I've always wanted to play in a game kind of like that, but not necessarily where we're the actual villains. And it was really neat. Like Severance D&D is what it felt like. So I was very pleased.
So pleased. I think I knew we talked about this idea of us being villains, and I think I thought of it a little bit more as like, you have monster of the week stories, and so maybe I thought it would follow a lot more of an episodic. But even in the first episode, Jake, you had so much story. I think that was the big surprise for me, that there was the BBEG literally, and that we were already on this story arc, started really fast, and that's a delight.
We
Yeah,
did
I
get
echo.
a complete story like that.
Yeah, I echo Raj's thoughts. Like, I kind of expected more of an episodic, like dungeon or villainy of the week kind of thing. But what we got was so much more, and I expected to sort of like run into. I don't know if I expected to run into the same group of heroes like over time, but definitely, like some of them would show up, and we got to see like how they progress based upon how we influence them. And I think you delivered all of that and story and world. You just layered it all together amazingly.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, so much fun, right? One of the things that when I tested this with a group of friends, right, we spent a lot of time thinking about that first episode of being like, well, how do you establish the conceit of the world? How do you establish the mechanics around the world, like you being faux villains? And how do you make sure it's fun, right? Because it could all go south, and it could all go south so fast. And for me, I'll just note that like what I originally kind of thought about was more episodic, and and folks in chat or you all who've run games, I think suddenly I sat around and I thought to myself, I have 6 sessions and I don't have that much time per session. And so if we're going to build this narrative or build any sort of through line, you only have 1 or 2 sessions to find that through line. And I think very quickly from the richness of your characters, I thought more of being like, we're going to dive into a through lined narrative very quickly. One of the mechanics that I wish to explore in the future, I'll just note that really I had to let go of for this moment in time, was the idea of you all pre-prepping the dungeon. right? Like
Mm.
I had built it out, and I want to explore it, this notion of you going in first and actually rolling dice to kind of reduce the amount of uncertainties that will emerge when the low level heroes come into the dungeon. I think it doesn't do well yet with, like, I haven't figured out how to speed that up and to make it feel natural.
Mm.
And so that's what kind of got away from me in terms of the episodic, is I think if that mechanic had existed more firmly, then episodic would have played out a little bit more smoothly, I think, because the conceit would be repeated over and over again. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, what were some of people's favorite moments from the overall game? Any highlights or anything that you found extra surprising?
I love every time we met anyone in the world. It was just like every single time we met someone, they were so awesome. Like even Percy the pony,
Mm-hmm.
just like I was like, I'm gonna have Cass speak with animals, and then he's like, no, he's this whole character that we already know. He's got a cigar in his mouth. He's like this grizzled. It just everybody was really rich, and then they had these, and then there's so many like silly names. I just kept track of every single one because I was like, oh my god, that one's so good. Oh my god, that one's so good.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
there was like the spider custodian or something, and then there was
Craig. Yeah.
Craig. Yes, the two
Very,
sphinxes.
very well realized characters. A few moments that stood out to me were that time when Tusher was convinced by the mushrooms to kill me. Or no, it was the rats and
Yeah.
their
The
hive
rats.
mind.
Mm-hmm.
We just had that moment. I was like, "You
I'm
okay,
sorry.
buddy?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry about this." God.
I'm
That was
sorry,
pretty
the
great.
dice rolled so well. Ugh.
I also I enjoyed you talked a little bit about the abandoning the premise of presetting the dungeon, right? So like the second time that we went in to create a dungeon was that time in Limbo, and essentially it was already going. So we had to fit ourselves into an existing storyline that was happening. And we decided that of all of us, Roz was going to be the main villain.
Yeah.
And Roz you went with it, and it was great.
Yeah.
And those adventurers were terrified.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts, and I've been telling lots of people about this game because it's been such a fresh take on playing D&D. And I've never used so many cantrips in my life. Like, and we're all like, we get access to these high level spells. We literally have Nicholas around who's just like, I'm gonna bring 69 undead with us. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But like the non-lethal damage, but still needing to do things, I felt a real creative just like push to do something different with my spells. And I still want to attack, but I don't want to do the same kinds. It's not just like hit them with everything you got, especially when we've been dungeon masters, and your instinct is like you don't get a lot of rounds, so sometimes you got to go really big with something to use your best spell. But in this case I was like, use my weirdest, most like unusual spell. Like I was really pushed that way, and I really enjoyed it. I think I learned about my character in a way I never would have if we weren't playing a game that focused on non-lethal combat.
Yeah, I think a lot of D&D incentivizes players to do damage and or like control against targets. But like here, it felt like we were actually trying to use our powers to build like a narrative and build an experience for NPCs and be like more performative, and like keep in mind like the meta of like, story beat and climaxes and conclusions in like a really, really fun way.
I'll jump in there too and say, building off of that, right? I think one of the things that I found so much joy in, I'll just note, like, is the big swings you all took constantly, right? The decisions as characters from the outset, we hadn't played yet together. right, as a team, we hadn't done a session 0 or got a feel of these characters. So quickly it was becoming apparent kind of where people lay. Like, I think about how Lady Hellblade, Allie, I was like, Allie's gonna kill people, right? Like, I was terrified that was going to occur, right? Or so much so that like Manda and the character of Apathy was so disinterested in like the performative, and it was just a job. And then all of you bringing then in your flavors of like Tutor being very like actually wanting to save people, right? Like, knew the value behind this. God knows what Nikolaus really wanted. I was so scared of you the entire time. And
That
then
was intentional, yeah.
yeah. And then Hemlock, as you, Roz, right? Being like so anti Potion Paradise, but also like finding that niche of both cute and terrifying all at the same time as a platypus. And I think that like so effectively was done. And one of the things that I think, speaking of like performative violence in some ways, that I loved is that multiple times through the fate of the dice, we saw NPCs miserably fail against you all. The same way that a PC sometimes has that happen to themselves. And I liked that there was a moment there where those egos of those characters get shaken, and you all responded to that, right? Either by pushing them over an edge or picking them back up, being like, don't worry, it's not as bad as you think it is.
That thing that Allie did in the last session when Fred, who benches 220, took his huge attack,
Oh my
so he
God.
just whiff, and she's like, "It's okay."
Yeah.
And didn't
You
she say
know?
something like that sword doesn't belong to you?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that was just like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
Oh, I mean,
or
there were some great moments with that character and that dynamic.
or like even at the beginning too, and so like at the beginning, just while you all were getting mind controlled by the rats, you saw that the NPCs were being quite bad at the fight. Like, they were level 1 at the time, right? So there was no way they could beat you.
Mhm.
And then I think about how the NPCs, who all of the NPCs like Emerald Candle, they were all level 10, and when they were fighting you, they miserably missed you, Hemlock, Roz, right?
It was so
Like
bad.
fully
That was
action surged botched
hilarious.
it, I think. And it was just like, what are you supposed to do as a hero in that moment? You know, you're just like, oh, I can't hit this small platypus creature who's the pharaoh monster, right? Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh God. Yeah.
I thought Roz nailed the moment though. Like, I love how
Yeah.
you built him back up by essentially taking like an alternative form of damage and like giving him like an alternative success by cutting off like your bandolier of potions. And then like all the
Yeah.
hamming up of the deaths were all delightful. I loved every time one of the death stones triggered and we got to
Oh
do
my
that.
God. One of,
Totally.
I'll just briefly note, while we're on this topic, right? One of the things that I'm trying to kind of like codify for myself is like the digging your grave premise, right? Which is like, if you have success episodes, the episode 1 and 2, players should be able to do whatever they want, and they're basically incentivized, as you all as players, to dig your graves, right? To dig things that are going to come up and haunt you later. And that first Death Stone in episode 1, with the second, Scott, that you said, I'm a terrifying vampire lord, and you got away. So you chose the gaseous form rather than be defeated. I remember writing that down, being like, that is a linchpin moment of like villainy establishing themselves in the world that is going to grow. Like, that becomes a lever for many things. Yeah. And it was so fun to watch you all doing those decisions very cunning, like very much like cunningly, all throughout the adventures. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you provided such a good premise that we just committed to the bit,
Yeah.
and it went great.
So I'm we got a little bit of a sense of like what you all thought of the experience. We have some of our favorite moments, right? Was there moments? I just want to just like throw this out there for a second, which is like, I know we have a question of like surprising moments. So maybe it's surprising or moments where there was like uncertainty from you as players, right? Where you're like, I don't know how things are shaking out right now.
I think for me it was the secrets, like having to give up a secret and the Banshee's whale happening and like things like that.
That was very surprising. And the whale
Very
happened.
surprising. And also I couldn't decide whether it was going to be used against me, like leveraged against me, later, and whether I thought this was all part of the BBEG plan and like a trap that they set up because it was going like way too swimmingly.
Fully. Yeah, because when we were basically getting into a thing that we had no control over, like, all right, there's something going on with this guy. And I only realized sometime in episode 3 or 4 what his initials were. And I'm like,
That was a great
Yeah.
aha moment
I was like,
for all of us.
oh, I see. But yeah, when we were finding his lair and his laboratory and finding the ways in, and I was like, oh, we have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes, but we got to keep going because we're committed to the bit,
Yeah.
I was pretty surprised to like meet Bill and fall in love with him. Or no, Percy the pony. Bill,
Percy
the
Bill,
pony.
I'm Lord of the Rings, Bill the pony. Percy, and then he dies, and I was just like,
Oh,
oh.
That was very surprising.
But then when we meet them again later, it's like, is there a chance to bring people back or not? And I think you did a really good job with that, Jake. I felt the tension and the loss, but also like the possibility. But also we have a necromancer with us, and so death and what it means to come back and not come back, and do you bring people back or not? Like that's complicated stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and do you save souls?
I was having very complicated feelings about like I was like thinking like, oh, what if our party zombified like Percy the pony, bring him back with us, maybe allowing him to get revenge, but like against his will or something, like, but it didn't happen. So, but I was like, man, as like the most like lawfully good of our group or something, like how would I actually react to that? Like, are we sliding into true villainy?
And I think with your
Maybe.
character nature also, right? Like death is natural, but we have a character who does necromancy, and that there's a nature element there too. So I don't know, like that it kind of there's that like philosophical side too that was just kind of floating there next to us of just like, oh, we're all just here to have a good time though.
Yeah.
I loved all the food as well with like Tutor along the way. I loved getting it. It was surprising to break into our own business center and then it'd be so developed but so corporate, like the meeting stuff, Jake. The meetings.
Oh yeah.
And the cafeteria. Ugh,
which box is he gonna pick? Which
Hey,
box?
yeah. I love the annual company meeting. So good.
That was a great bit for you guys to do of just like, I just love that idea of like every other employee in that room hated you right then, Nikolaus. Like it was just like, what the hell, why are we watching you do a dance, your skeleton do a dance on the stage, and the CEO is into it, which is even worse, Yeah.
That is the worst, craziest thing that you could like see on TV, and you're like, that's not real. But then you go to one of those meetings, and you're like, oh my god, it is real.
The other thing that I was kind of surprised about was that, we didn't talk about any of our characters really. Like we sort of gave an introduction to like who we were, but we didn't really develop them too deeply beyond that. And like some of the things that just organically like sprang up over the course of the adventure were really delightful. For example, like apathy and Nikolaus's like will they, won't they, and then like the bet that we had, Roz, over it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Also liked that you were, trying to give them their privacy of the like, maybe, you know, we'll bet on it, just like they've done their part and they're not a couple. And then for Hemlock to be the one that's like, yes, is really, I
Yeah.
think, a funny like difference of just getting to know the characters a little bit through that betting. But then for Nicholas to have this like on again, off again, almost like workplace sitcom romance with Apathy, and then but this other like complicated relationship with the other party member who was joining us, you know, like it's kind of a fun thing that it was like this, you know, Necrimbo in the middle of these two.
Yeah, there was this kind of like weird office romance triangle thing happening. And you know, the three of us talked that over beforehand. And I like how it manifested. Partly
Ah.
because you know, I think we mentioned this in the game, but to be really clear about it, Lady Hellblade was just a paladin, and she was one of those adventurers who Nicholas was tasked with sh- making a good show for. And apparently it was too good because she thought he really was Vecna, and she killed her other companions and then swore herself to his service, breaking her paladin oath and becoming an oathbreaker. And then, like, what do you say to somebody after that? You're like, no, it's I'm not really Vecna. Like, I'm just a 10th level necromancer. You want a job? So like there was a certain amount of like pathos to Lady Hellblade's character that just oozed into the game. I think it was an important aspect of our team because most of us, we all had very different personalities and we all
Yeah.
approached villainy in very different ways. And Lady Hellblade was probably the most traditional, closest to the archetypal Black Knight character. And I think that was an important aspect of the game to have because it allowed everybody to glow a little brighter in their particular manifestations.
Yeah, I like
I gotta
how.
say,
Oh, go
for it.
ahead.
No, you go for
So
it.
I guess just a quick aside. Like, I really liked your use of rumors, Jake. Like throughout the game, I really liked how it fed into both Apathy and Nikolaus's, you know, relationship. But also like some of the rumors that we were allowed to spread about like the potions and how that played into like the final scene were very delightful because it's super fun to come up with a rumor and spread it.
Definitely.
It's so fun to come up with a rumor, and I love seeing opportunities where you all entered into almost as either as a collective group or as individuals entered into positions where you were building that world, right? Like rumor wise, you were immediately constructing the world or shaping the world around yourselves, right? The initial rumor of even being like, okay, one of us is like a vampire lord, one of us is like the Dark Knight, and the rest of us are you know, the minions or whatever it may be, right? Like all of those things are like quickly in a world without villains. It's, I imagine it partially like Regency era heroes backtalk each other all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they are always rumor mongering each other. And so any rumor you say, even among the villain corporation, right? It's a culture of people going, "Oh my God, did you hear that Nikolaus and Apathy have been dating?" Which audience, I don't think I had mentioned, right? I had asked them privately to tell me both Apathy and Nikolaus to tell me what they would have said in the office, and they messaged me. And Eric, you said, Apathy said I'd tell no one, and Eric told me privately, I will tell anyone who would listen, which
Yeah.
is
Right.
everyone, right? Like everyone's gonna listen to this. Yeah. I just have to say, like, for me, one of the surprises that gave me such joy. I mean, you all surprise me regularly. And there were two that stood out, right? And the first one, fairly early on, was you, Eric, jumping into the portable hole. One, simply snatching the portable hole, right? Like you all in the cafeteria, and I believe it was Tucher at the time, or was it Apathy? Somebody got their hands on the portable hole, which was almost like as a GM moment being like, all right, I've never given them a very powerful item very quickly here. We'll have to figure out how to deal with this. And the second being you jumping in. Because as a GM in that moment, and pulling the veil back, there is a little bit of, well, something has to be in there.
But yeah.
Right.
And it could be anything.
And it could be anything. So what is it gonna be, right? And trying to figure that out very quickly and honor what I perceived as some of your motivations. It was very fun. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, Toy for Run also saying when the tower got deactivated. Admittedly, I'll just say, and this is the final surprise I'll say is, I had really hoped that the fight at the end was going to go differently, and I wanted it to be spicier, and you dunked on me all so hard so fast, right? Because I was going to bring that tower back, like I was going to reactivate the tower. It was everything was going to be fine until the silences came out, until all hell broke loose, and
oh my god.
Okay, Jake, first of all, yeah, I love silence. You know, I play a lot of characters. If I got a low level spell slot, I'm hacking a silence because there's so much utility.
I should have seen this coming, because you said, you asked, hey, you got this, or do you need me to intercede? And I'm like, go ahead and intercede. And you're like, okay. And I was like, oh shit, I did the wrong thing. I said the wrong thing. Silence spell. I'm like, well, there goes my idea. Jake's idea too.
I really wanted to see you like do the equivalent of like fist fighting a Nazi on the moon, you know, just like you and this old man unable to cast your magic one-on-one in the pile of zombies, just brawling it out.
I mean, that's kind of what did happen, except there were a lot of zombies on top of us.
Yeah, but you know, I gotta ask Jake, like, what did that tower do?
Yes.
Well, it was an initiative count 20 turret, right? So on an initiative count of 20, it would pick a target based upon wherever William wanted it to shoot, and it would just deal 66 points of damage. A very basic arsenal, right? But the longer you leave it up, you know, once it starts to turn on all of you, it becomes very dangerous very fast. So yeah, that was
nice.
That was its core premise, you know. I think that Blakely, admittedly as an NPC, very very much underestimated you all. Perceived you as a lot weaker than he thought you were, or perceived you as a lot weaker than you turned out to be. And very much at the end, it got away from him quickly. He really wanted Lady Hellblade to turn on you all, and was very frustrated that happened whilst he was in silence.
I mean, I made a good effort.
Yeah.
But we had the advantage of teamwork, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was part of the theme of the game, and partially the theme of all D&D games, in a sense, is that the heroes can triumph because the sum of their group is greater than the sum of the parts, right? Like, we could accomplish more because we worked together. Because Lady Hellblade did not turn on us, we managed to win. If she had turned on us, we would have gone down real quickly.
Yeah.
So
I also go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, also like in the end, I used my highest single level spell slot for a heal at the end. And that's such a like who Hemlock would be as a hero, as opposed to Hemlock in a villain persona loves the poisons, right? I've taken everything on this character to be a poison master and a brewer.
Yeah.
And then to get to do like what would be my biggest heroic addition to a team as a healer, a high level druid healer. I think I like that, you know, waiting for that moment and spending so long not healing anyone and then finally being like, okay, like just having the healing spirits but not really doing the like big clutch heal became something that I think really worked for that character in the end.
Totally. And it made such a huge difference, that your hero moment. We all kind of had a hero moment. Yeah. Although it's possible that Tusher's moment was more of a villain moment. Like
which one?
You were pretending to be a villain, right?
Oh yeah,
But that's
yeah,
so
yeah.
good,
To
so
the
good for
end, you were
Tusher.
like,
So
aha. And then
But Tucher beyond like everyone else, I think has one of the low key great hero moments of saving the Githzerai whilst in limbo, whilst everyone
none
else,
of us were
including
gonna do that.
yourself, cut the deal and you were escaping. Tucher seized a true opportunity to selflessly sort of spend time to actually respond to an NPC in danger.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 Tusher was the best of us. Like I'm thinking of us on like a spectrum from like lawful good to like chaotic evil. And Tusher is in the lawful good end, and Lady Hellblade's at the chaotic evil end. And then like you get Nicholas and you get apathy right in the middle. And then
it's fun that we are a spectrum, and each of us
Mhm.
naturally filled a spot between each other. Just instinctually playing the game and the characters we built. We didn't have overlap, and I think that really worked for that team feel. That everybody had a different role that we could move in and out of, but a clear kind of like place to play our character.
Yeah, I think I originally conceived of my character mechanically. Okay, I mean, I think I originally thought I wanted to make like a mother hen type of character, but just like some sort of really large, unexpected like mother hen. So somebody like really intimidating if you met them in the dark alley, but then they turn out to just be like a big
Cute.
softy. And
they stuff, cookies in your pocket.
yeah,
To
exactly.
send you on your way.
Yeah, so I think my whole initial idea was to like knock down heroes and then like use mage hand to like sneak treats into their pockets or like give them healing potions or like put a good berry in their mouth to bring them back up in combat. And that's basically all I started with, and I just like mechanically figured out like how to make good berries, how to make the most potent good berries, and that was it. That was the entire character.
Yeah, no, and it worked. It totally worked.
Yeah, had a good time. Would definitely play Tusher again.
When you first described your character as a put pocket, I was like, okay, he's gonna put a live grenade in somebody's pocket at some point. He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. But like Tusher wouldn't do that. He'd put like an explosive healing potion in somebody's pocket, like where they reach into their pocket and it and sprays all over them and everybody nearby. Tusher's just so wholesome, right?
Yeah. Or like he'd like sneak in like a nice card that says like a compliment that hits you right in the heart. So Jake, did you have any other abilities or surprises during the final fight that just didn't come up?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, if we could talk about that for a moment here too, right? But so the tower got deactivated fairly quickly. Right, the premise of the ritual was the objective at the end of the game here was not for me. It wasn't actually like the perception of like, will you kill William Blakely Galahad or not, right? It was will William Blakely Galahad succeed in performing the ritual? And there was a significant threat against him because you all had a chunk of you had counter spells, or like he was trying to play around that pretty heavily. But yeah, some of the things that he was unable to do, and it's always about playing as a GM, right? Playing with how many rounds do you have, right? It's like finding the timing around stuff. I think he had more, if either the fight was longer or had he not been silenced as much and like disabled as much as he was, he would have probably brought in more Galahad agents as mind controlled agents to go fight you all. He was, and it's where I actually stuttered a lot in the game, is he was saving in a real threat to Lady Hellblade. He had power word kill as a spell. And I had checked all your hit points, and the only person it couldn't affect was Lady Hellblade at maximum hit points. For everyone else, it would have instantly killed you. And in that moment, I think it was during the silence, there was a moment the turn right before that, William was looking for who it was going to be that he was going to take out. And I think I had looked at you, Hemlock. Like I was thinking pretty heavily about you, but I think the most threatening person was Lady Hellblade, and William had this really tough choice of like, I have to still gamble on my chips that Hellblade's gonna turn on you all, and I will believe in you being a villain. And I don't want to kill you immediately yet. Like, so it was that was one of the surprises I think that never like kind of came to fruition, was how you as players were going to handle an instant death and that notion of bringing people back to life. Yeah,
I would have been okay, like if obviously, if you'd taken out that character. Hemlock took a lot of damage through the course of this whole adventure. Did a lot of like getting pretty low. That would have been okay, like that as our GM. We're like, we trust you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Tell a good story.
I will say the other surprise is, and as much as the tower got destroyed, was the raw skill of using, I think it was the what was it, destroy water, some major destroy water spell.
Oh yeah.
So every paradise potion, and I was kind of curious about this, and I thought it kind of ironic that we were talking about mushrooms ahead of time, right? But something about the smell that, and a surprise that you never uncovered, right, was that of the paradise potions, 3 of them were beneficial. Like they were beneficial potions, and it was a potion of healing, a potion of hill giant strength, and a potion of heroism, right? So if
that
you
was
pick
the
up
toenails, right? The toenails are
the
giant
toenails were the
strength,
hill
yeah.
giant strength, right? If you picked up a potion, you rolled it on a table. The final potion was a potion of torpor that would instantly knock you unconscious. Because what William needed to do was trick enough people. One of his backup plans was to trick enough people to go unconscious so they had unconscious trapped souls to sacrifice if necessary. And so you removing all of the potions, my hope was actually that you were all going to try to just start drinking them. Or at least like investigate them enough to not discover that there was a dangerous one, and then I was going to knock you out that way. Yeah.
So there's probably a lot of things we didn't figure out.
Yeah. So like, what would have happened if he had successfully pulled off the ritual?
Yeah, well, so if he would have successfully pulled off the ritual, right, I think he was running up to the edge of his time again, and was becoming more manic. I will say, in the conceit of the world, when I draft this out and actually build the world itself to later release, Galahad Corporation will be taken over by a board of trustees. It won't be run by a single maniacal CEO. And your adventure has shown the history of it, right? Like, how did the board of trustees get established? Well, the original creator went crazy and tried to kill everybody. We don't like that. If he successfully, pulled off the ritual, right, that he re-empowered himself, right? He would have restored a lot of significant power to himself. In terms of our adventure, it probably would have spelled more him not like defeating you, not necessarily killing you, and then establishing himself as being like either fall in line or die sort of situation. Like, the conceit of the world still exists. You all just tried to stop me. And I don't like that, right? So like that at the core of the ritual was what was going on. And now had Nikolaus picked up on the ritual, that would have been wild. And God knows that would have been a good time. Yeah.
That was Nikolaus's hero moment, was not seizing ultimate power.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When Gandalf doesn't take the ring.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Very much so.
So one of the viewers in the Discord actually also had comments about where they believe the future of this game is. Toys for Run said, I believe that Hemlock will become the head potion maker for the Union, but Tusher will sneak in healthy ingredients, and that Apathy will become the most loved and respected Union head in history and hate every second of it.
Yeah. For sure.
That's definitely correct.
So another question that they had was, Jake, So first of all, they said you did a great job of DMing this adventure. If you could play a character in this world, did you have any thoughts about what kind of character you would make and what kind of villain they might pretend to be?
Oh, 100%. I play Craig. That little spider was close to my heart. I would probably play Craig or a Percy the Pony character whose primary role, like yours, Tucher, was more like, and Hemlock, I think you fell in this a bit too, was like this very supporting role. I probably would have played like some sort of getaway character, right? And I think I love little critters. You know, I like being a little rat, or something like that. So I would have probably played some small, minuscule creature.
The hive rats
who's
were so creepy. You did such
Oh,
a good
yeah.
job.
Oh my god.
Super
Oh,
good.
you all. I just had to say, I was just like, every clue was so fun because you at one point it was just like, okay, I called my friends, and you're like, okay, hold on.
Well, it was like a
Wait a
boiling
minute.
pot of water that we were in, right? And we're like,
Yeah.
sure, it won't get worse. Sure, it won't get worse. Oh no.
But yeah, that would be, so to the question of the Discord, right? I would definitely play like somebody who was a mascot character who very much was like the primary goal was to say like not the inverse of vicious mockery, like bolstering statement, like in a way to be like, you got it, adventurers, and then just like keep going. Probably a diviner of some kind so that I can give the adventurers nat 20s, right? And give our players low rolls for the fun of it, right? Really shaping that narrative, like messing with the world a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be super fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for asking it.
yeah, so we all had some more questions also from Ben Rowe. So Ben asks, what are your favorite heel turns in media?
I want to ask all you this too, right? What's your favorite heel turns? But I can start for a second. I think I have a ton of them. But when I was sort of like, oh man, to this question, I think a lot about being a kid and watching the game with Michael Keaton, I think in it, Crichton, right? In it.
Michael Douglas?
Michael Douglas,
Michael
thank
Douglas,
you.
Michael
Yeah,
Douglas.
Michael Douglas. Where I
Yeah.
remember just being like, what's going, oh, it's all been fake the whole time. Like what a fun reveal. And then in terms of narrative, now I could probably cause a fight by talking about Name of the Wind stuff and making some bold declarations in that camp. But in terms of narratives, something that just I really loved was Shirley Jackson, right? The Lottery, but also more The Haunting of Hill House, the book. Given that you're like, is everything real or not? Like, what's happening in this narrative? And then what is really going on? You're like, oh god, that reveal is always super fun.
So I did come up with two examples because I knew you were going to turn it on us. So one is from a book, and that is The Shining. Read the actual book. Jack Torrance's slow descent into being an out-and-out villain is pretty masterful, I think. And that book is a classic. I highly recommend anybody read it. And when we started talking about this, the first TV show that occurred to me was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And Grant Ward turns out to be like a double agent for the bad guys on the team, and it's just shattering, right, to the whole story and the whole dynamic. And I kind of like lost it with the show after that. I kind of petered out, but at that point I was like, this is great. This is what the show needed, because it was starting to coast, and then it needed to really shake it up. So I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
Roz, do you want to go first?
I found that it was tricky for me to think of ones. I think anytime you have like your favorite hero transitions and people think of them as the bad guy, I think mine is more like when my favorite hero just walks away. and then you want them to be the hero, but they're not going to be the hero you wanted them to be. I think about like in Watchmen, like Dr. Manhattan, when he's like, I'm off to Mars, F you guys. And you're
Peace.
like,
Yeah.
you just want so much for someone who could just solve all the problems to fix it. And then they don't. Like, I like those moments because your media tells us that it'll be a happy ending, but then sometimes it's just not. And so you're like, feeling those kind of vibes. I feel that way in comic books a lot. They'll do that because they go on for so many storylines, and I love Storm growing up, and there's a couple of moments where she struggles with like, can I really lead this team, and they don't want me, and all those like problems. And so sometimes anytime that one of those characters who's trying to lead the team just leaves, it's like, well, you're not the hero you're supposed to be. Like, come back. It is hard. And I think of that way with a couple of those kinds of story characters. But yeah, that was kind of mine in like trying to think about the same question.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same realm mentally, like aka comic books. Like to me, the one that really exemplifies like not only some of the most surprising but satisfying, but also just the sheer number of turns is Invincible. I don't know if you guys have read that series.
Yeah, good example.
Yeah, like not to get into like major spoilers for people that haven't read it, but if you do love superhero comics and you love some of these tropes of heroes turn to villains, villains turn to heroes, it's got that in spades, and it's got like a lot of really great nods to like some of the classic tropes or classic groupings or identities that you might find in Marvel. Like a lot of their organizations and heroes sort of like nod to like a Marvel equivalent, and then the way they play with like their relationships to each other is just masterfully well done and paced in such a breakneck speed way that like even in single issues, characters will turn multiple times in a believable and satisfying manner that is just awesome to experience.
Yeah, it's a really good series. Highly recommend it. The show is pretty good too. It's different. It's paced a bit differently. Like there's a big reveal in the first episode of the show that takes many issues of the comic to actually get. And yeah, I agree.
It's kind of a bit like our game in terms of just like some of the dynamics between them. But do you guys watch The Monarch on now I'm blanking on the Venture Brothers?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right, and he's like this like villain, but then there is a season later on where he pretends to be a good guy. Or like that whole dynamic of them, because they have a back and forth as well where they're not really trying to kill each other, but they are trying to defeat the bad guy.
I love that character so much. And I love all the like mundane life stuff that he has to struggle through or like bumble through. It's great.
Yeah.
I'll just add in there too, right? I think like a show like The Prestige or any narrative where, I don't know about you all, but where I love mysteries. Like I like trying to figure them out. I like trying to figure out what's going on. And so like any narrative where there is a creeping realization that I've missed something important and that there is a turn coming or multiple turns coming, you're just like, oh, this sucks. Like it's so, I think I take a ton of joy out of the dread that settles there. Yeah.
So like a follow-up question that had been asked that maybe we should have actually discussed first is, for any media, whether it be in wrestling, comic books, anime, or other media, what makes for a good hero turned villain, like at the core? Like what is it that's like satisfying for you about those turns? I can go first. I feel like for me, it's all about sympathy. Like if I can understand why they do it, and I also feel like it's kind of like justified, and if you can make me even like cheer for them a little bit, like those are the best. hero turned villain moments for me.
It's the continuity of characterization, like their particular heroism, particular powers, particular flaw. This is something that Toy for Run said in the chat, that their powers work against them in some way, or like the way their personality is structured works against them and pushes them to become a villain. I always find fascinating. It's probably not the most popular example, but I really find the Cyclops and the X-Men turned into a villainy path to be really fascinating. Mostly because that he was my favorite X-Men character when I was a kid, and he's really great in X-Men '97. Highly recommended. But like I, because you could see how he sees the world can kind of end in that direction, and I find that very interesting and a little bit scary. That dread that Jake was talking about, you know, the best of intentions can lead you down a very dark road.
I think I kind of agree a bit like with both of those points. I like them when they're still likable. Um, I think Lando in Star Wars, when you realize he's betrayed them in that moment, but you're like, but I just still like him. He can't really be a bad guy, and so you hold on to the hope that you're like, he's gonna come back, and so you're hoping that you're ahead of the story because you're gonna get the realization they're gonna give it to you that he's still a good guy. Don't worry, but he's still just super likable and such just good character work from the beginning.
Yeah. One of the things for me, I think a lot about, and I want to build off that sympathy, that being likable, right? Is that like when I build characters, I think a lot about their need versus their want, right? And often, like when we're starting off with us, as even as people, we're always like, "This is what I want, and this is what I think is going to save me or help me." And there's almost like a growing both internal and external display and realization of like, maybe what I want isn't what I need, but am I gonna take the step to still pursue the want? Like, I think that moment in the crossroads of like realization is really fun and can build sympathy where you're like, oh, I need to get this sword because this is gonna save my family. In reality, it's probably just like stop doing the adventure, go back to your family, right? Like that might be a good decision. But like that precipice, the moment, and all of your friends, all of the people in your community around you, whether they go yes or no, is such a dynamic uh moment for the heel turn to happen. Yeah.
I like mysteries, but Hemlock doesn't. And I like that, Hemlock is just like, I'm just going to smash or ruin everything and then we'll sort it out later. But I also like sometimes when my heroes that are on their way to villainy are like that too. I think at the end of Game of Thrones, the mess that it is, but Daenerys just being like, you were going to save everyone. And instead she's like, no, dragons, just burn it all. There's times when we're all just like, oh, this is all so broken. Let's just reset. Those villains that go like big bad, where they're just like, I'm just gonna get rid of the problem entirely. You're like, I get it sometimes. Maybe it's all just too broken.
Yeah, I think boy, like moments of like the opposite. You're making me think of like heroes turned to villains and like the ones that get me the most. It's not necessarily that I love these moments, but rather they give me the most like chills or the most like pit in my stomach feeling. Um are the ones where it's not about the action that they actually do. It's about what it means for them and their future. Where I'm more in dread because, like Jake, you said, they went up to the precipice, they stared into the abyss, and then they decided to make like the most selfish short-term decision. They did something that maybe speaks to that need, that central desire that they have at the cost of everything else. And I just want better for them. And like I want that moment of villainy I want them to be redeemed. Like, I want to continue on this story because I want to see where it leads, and in a good place. Like, I want to see, redemption. I actually don't really like stories where characters turn over to villainy and then they fall down the rabbit hole and they keep going down the rabbit hole, and the end is like, oh, everything is shit. Like, I actually don't really like that.
It's so sad. Like, even on, I don't know if you guys watch Adventure Time, but the Journey of the Ice King, he's like this bad guy for so long, and then you realize he's just trapped in it, and there might not ever be a way for him to escape, and you're just like, this is like the saddest thing ever. And to put that into a story that you're trying to explain to kids.
That's a great example.
But stop rescuing or stop kidnapping princesses, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and you're like, oh my god.
if you haven't watched The Dragon Prince, which I really enjoy, I think it's the latest season has a character who's in that position of very much like, I want to do the best that I can. Unfortunately, everything I'm doing is like for the wrong reasons, and is very selfish, and to your point, Yang, it's just like, oh, I can't wait for you to be redeemed. Come on.
Yeah, somebody get through to you, please.
Sometimes when Matt and I talk about heroes, we talk about it like, are they doing the right thing for the right reasons? Are they doing the right thing for the wrong reasons? Or do villains do the wrong thing for the right reasons, or the wrong thing for the wrong reasons? Or sometimes in some of the villains that get popular, they do the wrong thing for no reason.
And you saw that full spectrum in our game, right? Like, all levels of these decision makings that are like Tutor saving the Githzerai to be like, I'm doing villainy for the right reasons here, right? To save people, or you becoming the villain of the end, Tutor, to distract from the heroes of the realm doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, which is just bloodlusting and trying to kill these people. But for what end? To what end? Like, why are they doing it? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Usually, like, a lot of personal gain, actually.
Yeah. Usually.
Okay. So, are there things that didn't come up in any of your character backstories, like abilities that you've built or items that you have, etc., that you guys want to share now before we put like a cap on this first season?
So at one point, Nicholas mentioned that he had 2 rings, and he showed one ring, which was the brain ring. The other ring is a ring of regeneration, which he doesn't wear on either his real hand or the Ersatz hand, because one of his hands isn't real, because he does the Vecna thing often, right? So he has a couple of prosthetic limbs and a few Ersatz eyes, and he just cycles through. His other ring is a ring of regeneration, which is how he kind of keeps himself sustained. But he's got to be careful not to wear it for too long. Otherwise, a new arm will start growing, and he can't have that for work reasons. So that would have been a fun thing to reveal. And I'm pretty sure he was just wearing it on his toe. So just to reassure everybody.
Disappointed.
Well, we can have headcanons, can't we?
Yes. In the fan fiction Hemlock writes.
Nice.
I don't know. Does Tusher have any?
Yeah, so I think like in the moment where we were asking about like secrets or something in that chamber, like I thought of one. Well, I thought of several, because honestly, like I didn't have a very deep backstory created for him. Like in my mind, he was just like, just grew up, normal family, blah blah. But I thought the most fun one that would have shaken things up, that I was going to say, was that he actually also had a crush on Nikolaus, and that's why he didn't want Nikolaus and Apathy to actually get together. That was like his secret, hidden reason why he always like, voted against them. But then I was like, we only have 2 sessions after this, and there's still like so much to resolve. And also, is this a trap? Because someone's gotta stay behind and watch the rear and be unaffected just in case. But yeah, that was like the one thing.
I did a bunch of like thinking about the potion paradise stuff that I got from Jake, and then when we created Aspen Clam Broth, and this like rivalry, and then what was yeah, great name, right? What was the way that Hemlock was going to interact with it, and did they have their own shop? And then trying to figure out, you know, this idea that they wanted like potions to be free, and trying to I just wanted to do more about that kind of thing, but there's only so much time, and like, but I have a business on the side, you know, that kind of a whole sideline there for that character. But
I
I
was
also
secretly
didn't do a ton of that building either. But
wondering if you were like your character was actually wealthy in real life and you just lived a life of like adventure and leisure.
Yeah.
You're just Batman.
I did take and assume that Hemlock has the diamonds with them for being able to just reincarnate.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
But it's super cheap still, right? Like you don't make money by spending it.
I'll say that, like, you know, in terms of the world secrets, right? Because as a GM, you got to make your fun somehow, right? So there's constantly, I'm just hiding references as many places as humanly possible. And one of the secrets that I think was kind of fascinating for me is dealing with whatever was going on in Limbo, like the frog thing, because that was coming up for me, and I was like, what? I'm even kind of curious, like, what's going on there? Why does Galahad hang out there compared to other places, right? And I think it was a lot of fun to just hide a bunch of secrets, and then for Galahad to be like hiding a bunch of dangerous weaponry among low-level adventurers was a lot of fun to do, right? It was just like, what's up with him? Like, why is he so crazy? It was always something I was sort of sitting around with. Yeah.
Limbo was a huge surprise.
That was fun.
I just think, just as a location, and then for a character who was like, don't worry, there's always water around for my spells. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I really love the fact that the man, why am I blanking on what the frog creatures are called right now? The
Slod.
Yeah, I love that they were there not just to attack, but they actually had like a goal. They had a goal that implied like there was some deep history or prior event that was happening there. And that just felt really nice. It was like a very like well lived in place.
Yeah. That no one, it seemed, right? So William Blakely E. Galahad was so fun to do as a name for you, Eric, watching your face inevitably go, okay, I picked up on what you've done. Was very joyous, but it doesn't seem like anybody picked up on what Timrek with the giant frog creature, what that whole shtick is.
I don't think so.
Just flip it around.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, Kermit.
It's not easy being green. Yeah.
Bring back Kermit. You gotta hide it everywhere.
Oh
you know?
my god.
No,
So good.
The Easter eggs sprinkled throughout the game were pretty great. Like Fred, who can bench 220, and the adventuring party that we met in Limbo, who were like the Justice League, except as characters in D&D. And I animated the Flash into now I don't even remember what I called him, but it was some kind of like Dead Lightning or something.
Yeah, Dead Lightning. It was Dead Lightning. Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Were there any other Easter eggs that you tucked in that people didn't get?
Well, you all at the very beginning, right? So like as we were figuring out the first mission, as Apathy left, right? There's this realization, oh, I missed something, right? As a rogue, and I think you knew it too, Tucher. Had you pushed further into that room, and had you had like a minute longer to all just sort of like settle, like I think the pace was going pretty quick. The rats were definitely gearing up to go and eat you all. Had you had another minute in there, there was this that fireplace. I referenced a fireplace in there. Had you spent any amount of time looking at it, you would have realized there was a room behind it. and where William Blakely Galahad was hiding people that he had been initially sacrificing or preparing for his rituals, right? So you would have kind of cracked a door open pretty wide very quickly about like, oh, what type of ritual is going on here. So that was a lot of fun to be like,
is that
sorry,
why Pony had to die? Because you had to get us involved in that story in some way.
well, yeah, and yeah, Percy the Pony. I mean, you got to kill your darlings, right? And so
Sure.
Percy the Pony was my darling who was too much of your ally. He was too stable of your world. Right, I had to disrupt the world so that Aspen would become a potential villain for Hemlock as the Union is getting solved. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that Allie wanted to know where the dog was.
He is a summonable pet. So it's just within the fight, it never made sense to summon Scoob, but yeah,
right. Because
Scroob would have showed up.
Some of them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you remind me now that you mentioned Allie. I think I missed a little bit about the spirit that talked to her and kept like compelling her. I think at the castle in the limbo.
Yep.
So was that something born out of a discussion you and Ellie had, or something that just
I'm gonna be real. A lot of what you all did, I was making stuff up on the spot very quickly to respond to you. There was, I mean, so I approach adventure design a lot with like a villain centric design, which means that I just know the villain's motivations, and the fundamental question being, do the players ever impede upon the villain's motivations as they go to their ultimate goal, or do they fuel the motivations, right? And so all I knew for the most part was what Galahad was doing and like how Galahad was going to get to the end of this adventure. And then all you all, as you were going, is like, oh shoot, okay, we got to like follow up with a respond to you. So yeah, for that spirit, I think I very quickly was like, it's clear that Lady Hellblade is in a moment of questioning their future. And I think that Limbo being a plane of chaos where there are petitioners who are stuck here and all they want to do is hear great stories, somebody would get attracted very quickly to Lady Hellblade and what Hellblade was doing and want that story, whatever it might be. And so it was kind of a direct response to actually posing the question more to Allie of being like, where are you gonna end up, right? You're clearly questioning stuff here. Where are you gonna go?
Yeah, I thought it was great because I thought it was also a great nudge for us to get closer to her character and like figure out some more of her internalities. Because she had such a good like internal struggle that started with Nikolaus tricking her onto this path of like villainy that's secretly heroics. Yeah, so I thought that was awesome. And also like DMs making things up on the fly. No, we never do that. That never happens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
it was good.
Yeah, thank you for saying yes.
The poop was the most shocking moment. I just have to like as a GM moment, right? Because I had put the bathroom there and I was like, that's just fun. Right? That's just fun. There like hot take about D&D. I don't think players, and generally in fantasy novels or in just movies in general, nobody says, hey, I'm gonna end this conversation because I have to poop. Like no one naturally closes convos with just bodily need, right? And it's so fun to be like, no, bathrooms are things that people need in a office, you know? And then for you, Hemlock, to go in there and you're like, let me figure out how William Blakely Galahad's health is. I'm like, what? He's old.
Yeah.
He's unhealthy. Like, what do you want? And then, yeah.
But then you turned it into something amazing.
Oh, it
with
was
being able
so
to communicate to us through that. Like it's such a like a cinematic it's like that portalness of it was so good.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun and I think it was right up Aspen's alley to be like, this is where Hemlock would spend most of their time. Like, Carter, go dig through the toilets for as long as possible to find Hemlock, because we know how this is going to shake out. Yeah.
It's very believable. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, are there any other things that were missed that people want to share? Going once.
I'll just say once more, right? What a joy running this adventure with you all has been, right? I routinely think about your characters and think about you all as players, and what a treat it was so early on to be like, take big swings, and to then watch you just proceed to take swings the entire time, and really lean into the fun of being ludicrous, performative adventurers. Well, thank you. I mean, what a joy. Thanks, gang.
Well, thank you for running it. It was great. We're like, yeah, we want a game. Hey, Jake ran a really cool game. Let's ask Jake, what kind of game do we want Jake to play? Hey, listen to this crazy thing.
Yeah.
And then you just made it all happen, and it was really impressive. So thank you very much. And thank you, Roz, for playing with us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yang Yang, for setting aside some time from your busy job at Wizards of the Coast, making your opinions not.
Oh, right. I work for Wizards of the Coast. All my
company.
opinions are my own and none of them. I'm the worst at saying that.
I'll also say thank you, audience. I read the chat during the game, and when some people post stuff, it is quite fun to respond to it quickly. It is. I am a big fan of being like, people going, I wonder if this is going on. And you're like, of course it is. Of course it's going
on. To take us out, Jake, what is the future for this concept? You mentioned maybe are you going to put it together and put it out there somewhere for people to try?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So right now I'm actually in the process, and we'll have to all chat afterwards at some point in time, right? I'm trying to draft out a different concept that I'm really excited about with it. The first premise being, right, you play, and we've seen this in other adventures, but you play a D&D light experience that's you play as kids. And it is just like the joy of what it means, right, to play as kids and have very combat light, more just like shenaniganry that's going on. So once that comes out, I would like to see Villains Wanted get built out a bit, and the core mechanic there of figuring out a way in a one shot to let players sow rumor, quickly inhabit their roles, establish the layer, and then to lose. I think I'm really excited to see go forward in the future, now that you've defeated the corrupt CEO and the board of trustees and an incredible union rep who hates their life, are now in power. So, yeah.
Rad. Okay, yeah, we look forward to that then. And, we'll be sure to have more of you and more of Roz here on the channel at some point in the future.
Definitely.
You want to take us out? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I will just say one last thing. I would not be surprised if you're all interested in exploring. I could easily see Tucher on a road to some corruption or what is it, the veil being lifted and sort of disenchantment with what exactly you are up to, Tucher, and I would always be open to exploring that. Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah, I will say I did actually think about in the end everything accumulating into like Tucher's disillusionment, because as like a company guy, like suddenly everything he thought the company stood for was shattered in front of his eyes. But I think
what does it take to break the best of us?
Right, yeah. In the end, I think I decided that a true villain appeared, and it was like good enough for him to defeat him and then try to take the company towards the vision that he thought it was and make it a reality. So
yeah.
But yeah, we'll chat more about that, and we'll see you all again soon, viewers. I think we're coming back next week or the week after with the very first session of Stephen Molino's campaign. So see you then.
Bye, gang.